All right. You know, I know. Um, Thank you for tuning. Wine at 7. So we're gonna go over the Spotify issue in its entirety, current state, right now. I know a lot of my diehard supporters, uh, whether it's the Knowledge Channel or the music and or both that you rocking with me on. I know that you are very fatigued with being the ones telling people months, years, decade in advance of the truth, basically, and having to watch them be emotionally attached to bullshit and then call you 7 years later, 8 years down the road, and say, damn, they don't tell you you was right, but they say, damn, what are we supposed to do now? And the issue is 7, 8 years down the road is not the time to ask that question. Because not only did they destroy you for 7 or 8 years, right? Behind the scenes, they destroyed the community's opportunity for 7, 8 years, a decade. That's why they don't understand how you really feel. I get how you feel because I'm just like you. I go through it all the time. And the Spotify issue is no different. So, I remember people saying, how many monthly listeners you got on Spotify? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even use Spotify. How are you an artist and you don't use Spotify? Because I don't invest in things I don't believe in. What do you mean you don't believe in Spotify? I don't believe that they're healthy for you if you're not a major artist. No, they're going to be revolutionized. They're going to free and empower the indie artists, and we're going to be able to break away from record labels. See, when you're analytical, when you're informatively socially influenced, you don't really just get emotionally attached to bullshit. That's why you have so many people running around talking about keep your circle small and all this stuff. You don't have to worry about keeping your circle small. Your circle's small because people can't bullshit you and they get frustrated. You don't have the same emotional reaction as they do. They can't pull it out of you. So they go get their fix, their addiction from somewhere else. A lot of you would be a lot more wealthy in their eyes if you just quote unquote played the game. But these are the same people that say they don't run no game on them. Right? But they want you to play the game. So when you saw the game ahead of time and you saw the danger ahead of time, you realized it was a waste of time. And it's very unfortunate that so many artists are going to be waking up to this now and slowly, gradually waking up to this over the last couple years. After they've put tons of currency into trying to grow a Spotify channel, right? Or a Spotify, not channel, but their Spotify brand. In a game where they're already going to be selecting who they want to succeed and why. Okay? We're going to cover this in its entirety. So get ready. So here's the shocking news to some, right? Spotify's new plan is to make the Let's say here, Spotify's new plan is sure to make less popular artists very angry. Okay, Spotify is planning to pay small artists on its platform less for their streams, according to Music Business Worldwide. Its royalty payout model is reportedly getting a makeover with 3 major changes the digital music giant is planning to roll out first quarter in 2024. Now, you know, it was already like what 3.0003 cent per play. I mean, you had to get, what's that mean? 1,000 plays got you $3, right? And y'all were hype about it. Y'all was out there talking about, I'm gonna get 1 million plays. So let's see real quick. 1 million plays times 0.003. So you get $3,000 for 1 million plays on Spotify. 1 million. What was that? A million used to mean you went platinum, right? And sales. So you have loosely a comparable situation to having a platinum moving record, right? And you get $3,000 for it. And because y'all accepted that, you know, they realized they could continue to screw the hell out of you. Okay. It's the same thing as the music showcase situation when you know, I had a background in photography, so I was in the club. I did a lot. You know, we was doing 3 to 5 high end, or not necessarily high end like venues, but we were at 3 to 5 of the places, the place to be that week, every week for, you know. So I saw the evolution of the artists being paid to perform to when they started charging smaller artists to perform at venues, and being able to speak to promoters and venue hosts and everything about it. I'm always the type that stand up for people, you know, even when they're not there, which is why people like us, you and me, we get the short end of the stick sometimes, and you get disappointed with society because they don't get why you do it. And you know, it's just a overall, it's not an overall strong position when you're not focused on the illusion of what they call money in a circle that's all addicted to money, right? All right, long story short, so you know, it wasn't a smart thing for the artist. It didn't represent building our community locally. It was about you know, what basically would be equivalent of control. That's what currency is. It's control to access. That's all it is. That's why we need to get rid of it from society. But all right, let's get back to this real quick. All right, I ain't gonna say real quick. Let's get back to this. We're gonna go over a few things here. I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna go over. We're gonna go over Spotify paying the artist less. We're gonna talk about the artist budget a little bit on a song. We're gonna talk about advertising money, currency. Did you know they charge the listeners? Did you know who owns a big stake in Spotify? We're gonna get to that. Wait till you hear this. And then I got a shocking surprise for you that makes it all don't make sense, right? Most of you may not know this. All right, so let's get through this. So Spotify's planning to pay the artists less after they were already paying them an insulting amount to begin with, right? So it says allegedly planning to enforce a minimum threshold on annual streams that artists have to hit before their songs earns royalties on that platform. But what the minimum will be is currently unspecified. So Spotify's goal is to demonetize a portion of tracks that absorb 0.5% of its royalty pool. 0.5% of its royalty pool. Now, remember this number. They're concerned about 0.5% of its royalty pool. All right, so keep that number in mind. Matter of fact, write this down. Right? This is what this is all about, so they say. Okay? Now, I want to go over this real quick for the people that are watching this that maybe aren't necessarily artists. I want to show you this because no matter what business or brand you have, I want you to consider this when it comes to marketing. Okay? Because just like the Y97 channel, we know that they are manipulating the content, the reach, so they control ultimately who can see what, when, where, why, to a degree. You can go to the YouTube channel, you can see, a video may have 20 views on it, and then you come back the next day and it only shows 16. Then after that, 14. And it doesn't seem like it, you will say, well, what's the benefit of that? The benefit of that is if you have content where you're putting out knowledge, wisdom, intelligence, right? And they want to dumb down society, or they don't want you to be recognized as the source of intelligence. Well, you already know that the average Gen Pop is addicted to doing what's popular, right? So someone else could be saying the same thing that you're saying, and they're going to get 10,000 views, but they're purposely not allowing you to be seen as it because you know what to do with the information to actually make a difference with it, right? Hold on one second. All right, so excuse the interruption there. What we're gonna do is continue. So because you actually have the intelligence, they don't want you to have the population to support the intelligence. Like when you look at certain situations out there, like there's people out there right now talking about, oh, they turned their back on me and I turned up on them, right? Nah, what they failing to tell you is, I said, look, me and you combined have information, have intelligence that could empower the whole continent. We need to get to a point and give it to the people. They wanted to, quote unquote, make money from it. This has been the history with me ongoing. I mean, yeah, I could probably be a multimillionaire right now, just like you. But your concern is about empowering the people. Right? Their concern is about enriching themselves at the end of the day. That's the part they're not telling you. Because the society is conditioned for the emotional attachments to beliefs. They want to believe that there was a struggle, a battle, and this person came out on top. No. The other person, in this case, me, just didn't want to be in a position where I was basically extorting you due to lack of knowledge. In a situation with an attitude, which means position, where I need you to know this just as much as I know that it's a benefit for me to know it. Because ultimately, the reason that the state of America, your state, local government, whatever community is in the condition that it's in now is because what the book say, some book said, people perish due to lack of knowledge. You know what I mean? Like someone knocking on your door, not realizing your state of mind, and they playing in bullshit games, and you're not interested in playing games. Right? See, that's why people fight. They want to fight you about everything because they believe, let's fight. What's they say? Oh yeah, fights. Right? Live to see another day. They don't realize is that's a game. Fighting is a game. It's a sport. When you look up the etymology of the word sport is a joke. That's really what the etymology of sport is. It's a joke. So you want to play games with someone who wants to stop the game from being played, period. Like, don't play games with me. Because while you're looking for a fight, they're looking to end it forever. You don't live to fight another day when you fight the wrong person. It's a myth. Or you could accidentally, you know what I mean? I've seen it in the club. Security throws a person out the club. They happen to fall the wrong way, hit their head the wrong way. Boom. They're dead, all because they were trying to show off after having too many drinks at the club. The person that throws them out winds up getting charges. Who knows how that ends out from the allegedly, whatever the ending of that situation was for them. Did they go to jail? Did their family suffer now because of a domino effect? Because someone wanted to play too much? It's a whole bunch of people out there right now with people on a t-shirt, all because of a fucking game at the end of the day. Stop fucking playing games. All right. So back to this. .5%. All right. Let me get to this for you. Because this is a game. real quick, let's look at what they say an artist should spend on their budgets, right? So we just discovered that Spotify saying they're doing all of this because they're looking to capture 0.5%, right, of their revenue, of their royalty payout is being let's say this is what they're doing it for, 0.5% of their total royalty payouts. So this is from Band Builder Academy. The reality about this sort of stuff here is there is no real true cookie cutter way to do this shit. If you come out with a hit song and you put it in the right spot, you can basically spend no money and it goes viral, and you're around the world, people are calling, you're making $1 million next month, whatever, right? Or you could actually have to build your career. You talk to some of these artists that made it, they'll tell you that they put in $50,000, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 into promoting and building up a single, like one song, right? By the time they add in online promotions, paying DJs, and that's where y'all went wrong. Y'all started following these trends and like paying to play. You know what I'm saying? And then they say, oh, well, this guy does it, everybody should do it. And then they started getting what they wanted more for it, like the mafia. You know what I mean? Anyway, this little site says this is the numbers that you should, recommend it per them. And you see the tier structure there. If you're a brand new artist looking for a priority track, they're looking to say you should spend $75 to $1,000. A developing artist should spend $200 to $8,500. An established artist, $500 to $15,000. You know what I mean? You'll be quite disappointed to know that you can get your song on billboards for at least a day or two for like 10 grand, just like you can get it on the local small platform that's ranking your music in award. It's no difference. Like when you really start to learn about what is the industry from the industry side, you're gonna have to there's an infinity. I'm into infinity, but what I'm gonna say is you're either going to be like, the fuck, or you're gonna be like, oh, okay, that's all I can play along with this game. See, that's what it is. A lot of the listeners don't realize that they're not listening to the best music. They're listening to the most connected or most budgeted music, which is why they can call your song trash, right? And then listen to a song from an artist with a big backing for it that sounds just like yours. The same reasons they called yours trash, they're bumping in the car. I mean, within, production value makes a little bit of a difference, you know what I'm saying? But ultimately, it could be the same song, but they'll play that because they don't realize that there was $150,000 put behind that song to make them think that they like it on a psychological level. They've been forced to hear it 8 times. They're more familiar with it. Someone listens to 20 seconds of your song and starts telling you what's wrong with it. They don't know shit. They don't know the science behind the music. They're looking at the Billboard charts. They don't know that it's just a payment, a monthly payment. You get on there. The question is, do you have $10,000, $15,000 a week, a month to commit to that? Then you wonder why the artists at the record labels are how they wind up in so much debt. See, it's a system that helps produce a slavery situation, which the artist finds out. All right, let's move on because I want to now go over how they really got here and what's going on behind the scenes with Spotify that's driving this in its current state, because it's been happening all along. It's just been gradual and you guys don't know it. Most people don't know it. So let's look at this, right? Let me get this on the screen for you. So it's always about the money, right? We hear, those of rocking with me know there ain't been no money since 1930s, but there's still people out there that believe they getting money. So let's entertain their insanity for a minute. What's going on is the music industry, if you look here, what's going on in audio advertising? Spotify grows, podcast goes global, and radio is a safe bet, right? So Spotify keeps growing, but isn't unaffected by advertising downturn. Okay. So remember back in the day with the radio situation, and they were talking about how, the artists became a pay to play scenario for the artists, and labels were paying big money to have their music played on the radio, but the radio was also making tons of money from the advertising dollars, right? So when radio started to collapse a little bit, the advertisers started to take their dollars away from radio, really put them in a bind in a lot of situations, and there was a lot of concern about that, right? So look at this. Spotify had a successful third quarter, adding 23 million monthly active users to its platform. And this article was from December 22nd, 22, right? So Q4 22. So they added 23 million active users to its platform and growing total revenues 21% year over year. Growing total revenues 21% year over year. Now, remember that number they said in the beginning that they're doing this because they have concern about the 0.5% of their royalty dollars that was going to songs that were supposedly or allegedly going to songs that were not performing as well. They're doing this over a concern of 0.05% of royalty dollars. Okay. But you're saying here that your revenues are growing 21% year over year. So if you're really in an issue where you're getting 21% more revenue each year, why are you shitting on the local artists over 0.5% of a portion of that? All right. So one of the issues is this right here. Despite a surge in users, Spotify slightly missed the ad revenue mark. Last year, third quarter, ad-supported revenues grew 75%. Okay, so think about what that was. That was what, during the quote-unquote pandemic, quarantine, right? At that time, because this is December, this article is being put out, and it's saying last year. So last year, so 2021 third quarter, so 21 Q3, ad-supported revenues grew 75%. This year, being 2022, that number is down to just 19%. So it says here, Spotify isn't immune to a big slowdown that's happening in ad spending overall. It's affecting everyone, said this guy, Konstantinovic. The company is going to have to cut through the noise a little bit to show that it can still grow after this downturn ends or emerge from it in a better position. Now remember this difference of 75 and 19. See, this is why they don't want analytical people. And, it's not, this is by all means, it's not me saying, what this is me saying, hey, look, I like to explore data because that's where you find what the truth is. Anybody can tell you anything they want to, get you all emotionally attached, politics, right? But when you look at the information, this is what the difference between normative social influence and informative social influence is. And the reason I take the time and deviate and tell you the mechanics behind this is not so you can sit there and say, oh, Pasha uses big words or Pasha thinks he's better. No, I need you to know that there's a science to this that you can go and explore and start to be able to do this for yourselves too, and we can grow together. And a unified force is stronger than a divided one. If I'm the only one that can see it like this, then they get rid of me and you guys have nobody, right? I need you to be my equal so that we can stand together as a state, as a nation, as a people. All right. So that's why I take the extra time to explain to you the science that I'm using behind this stuff, the words like that. So rock with me. I appreciate the ones that do. Okay, so let's move on. Keep this in mind. The year before, they grew at 75%. So 2021, they were up 75%. 2022, they were down to just 19%. So they kind of, and don't take that as a loss. It just means if you had 100% to plan, because you may be running your own small business, and you say this is your goal, and you make it 75% of the goal. Okay, that goes down as you grew at 75%, right? Or you could be saying this is what we made last year. Whatever. It depends on how you articulate your own numbers. That's the problem with statistics. Okay, so they didn't specify that, but let's just say whatever rule of view they're looking at, the year before they were up 75%. 2022 they were only up 19%. Remember, that's about a 50% drop, right? So remember that 50% number. Okay, now we're gonna go to the next slide, so to speak. In 1 second here, let me get this up. All right, bam, here we go. Dropped it in, load it up. All right, so the same time they doing this to the artists, right? Keep in mind here, this is from July 2023. Spotify is raising prices for the listening side of it. Premium individual plan costed $10.99. Okay, so the music streaming service on said Monday, whenever this article was, but this was what, July 2023. So said Monday it will be raising prices across its 4 subscription plans, with the change bringing up costs between $1 and $2 per month for U.S. subscribers. The price hike will affect more than 50 markets and comes as a number of Spotify's competitors raise prices. So if they're raising it $1 to $2 a month, right? And it's $10.99 now. So let's say $2 divided by 11, that's 18%. So they, on the high end, they raise subscriptions 18% for listeners. Now remember, we just did the video on the Ford auto workers strike, right? And I told you what happens when these companies don't have the consumers in mind. So you got to look at it as the listener as a consumer, but also the artists are consumers. Okay? So they have a couple different streams, and then the advertisers are consumers. All right. Now, 18%. That's ironic, because you're going to see this number 18% again, but it doesn't have anything to do. Ooh, maybe it does. So let's look at it. How they gonna pay? How they gonna pay for that? Right? Hold on a second here. Let me get this next slide up here for you. All right. So, I mean, if you got any questions, drop it in the chat, and we can spin off on it a little bit. So, here, what I wanted to show you here is interesting. Okay. So, share of global music industry paid subscriptions. Okay. So here's Spotify with 31%. Let me make sure I got this on the screen for you. I do. Okay, let's rock. Spotify has, this is Q2 2021. So it's a little bit of a historical data, but we'll use it for the example. So 31% of all the share of global music streaming paid subscribers, right? So roughly, and they're adding what, they say 25 million, something like that last year. So let's just use 30%, 33%, whatever. They got a third. So a third of the global music streaming paid subscriber customer base is now being having to 18% increase in their subscription rate. But here's the interesting part, right? Because it talks to you about, this article says how a lot of where was it at? Is it here? No, I guess above. It says how a lot of oh, maybe it's here. Anyway, in the beginning of this subscription, streaming explosion when it first started, they said a lot of the music industries were suing people, right? Suing these companies. So they negotiated a deal, Spotify did, ahead of their rollout when they first opened up, okay, with the music industry. So to reach these heights, Spotify negotiated with the music industry, which here go right here, damn, right in front of my face. So which had sued many previous disruptors, quote unquote, out of existence. But with Spotify, industry leaders made a deal ahead of its rollout, ahead of its 2011 US debut. Now here's the interesting thing. The biggest labels, including Warner Music Group, Sony, and Universal Group, received a combined 18% ownership stake in Spotify, netting them hundreds of millions of dollars. Spotify said, so with that right there, right, issue number one is for all of the people that say, hey, Spotify is going to be our way to get separated from the record labels and be able to do our own thing without being influenced by the record label. Well, guess who owns roughly 20% control, stake, and profit of your promised land? The record labels. Okay, 18% ownership of Spotify is the biggest record labels, Warner Music Group, Sony, Universal Group, and there may be more, but it lists those three here. All right, now here's another interesting tidbit. Spotify set up a royalty payment structure, sending 67% of revenues from music back to the rights holder. Now, my question is, what are they defining as the revenues? Because 67% isn't 100. Okay. Now, is it 67% of gross revenues, or is it 67% of what was supposed to be given back to the right holders were sent back to the right holders? Right? Because if it's the royalty payment structure plan, are they talking about the revenues from the royalties? Because then this number looks a little, why is it 67% to begin with? See, because when Spotify say you have 5 plays, you don't know if you really had 5 plays. You might have had 500, and then they just put 5 up there so they can only send you 0.015 cents. Right? This is the issue with this system. And now apparently, look who's behind it with an 18% ownership. So now if the people you're trying to get away from owns 18% of where you ran to, did you get away from them? So who, now you know who stands to gain, who has positioned themselves to be in the attitude of gain if Spotify, quote unquote, fails. If Spotify fails and collapses, everything, if Spotify fails and collapses, we've now identified that Universal, Sony, and Warner Music Group own 18%. So that brings us to the next slide. Okay. 1 second here. I'll drop this on the screen for you guys. We're gonna learn today. No, not that one yet. This is what I need. Here we go. So, did you know that Spotify was a publicly traded company? Now think about that for a moment. When you think of the benefits of being a publicly traded company, it kind of puts you in a position where you can adhere to your business model because you have investors dumping in funding for you, right? So currently, not only are they a publicly traded company, the current stock price is at $159.35 a share, which is up 14% over the last 5 years, 15% basically. However, even though it's up 15% over a 5-year period, it's less than half of what it used to be not even 2 years ago. So remember I said keep in mind about that 50% difference from 9% or 75, whatever it was, 74 to 19. That's roughly the difference between the stock price value in February 2021 and today. So with that on the table, is it coincidence, right? If the record labels are saying you owe us 18%, now you see why there's such a demand for new subscription members, right? And they're raising the premium 18%. They're trying to secure that 18% for the record labels. And at the same time, they lost 50% on ad revenue. And coincidentally, their stock price dropped a little over 50% in the same period of time. So now the stockholders are pissed. And when you have a publicly traded company, at the end of the day, none of the customers are the primary customer. In a publicly traded company, the primary customer is the stockholders. That's why these companies don't give a fuck about you, or you. Because they're trying to answer to stockholders. So, which is ironic because you're a publicly traded company and you're basically robbing the little guy who creates the content for you so you can appease the stockholders, and 20% of those are record labels that you owe money to. And I don't even know that the 18% is totally just for a revenue splitting. I mean, on royalties. What if the royalty money is on top of that? Or a portion of it is. Okay? So the record labels, the very people that you ran from, stand to gain the most if Spotify goes belly up, bankrupt, collapses, falls out of existence, because then they will have a system already built, pre-existing, with subscribing members that they can just inherit through acquisition. What would happen and how would it look? I think there was something put in place to prevent it in the past, but Spotify could basically be a front for the record labels to have this platform existing that they control and run, which basically creates a monopoly. All right. So just like the Ford workers situation, now you got the issue happening at Spotify, which is unfortunate. And if we look at that here, right, and then we'll wrap this up shortly, because people don't, I appreciate the people that want to know the truth. You know what I'm saying? Because now that we know, you get to decide what you want to do about it. All right. But now you know why I never really played the Spotify game. Because you got to know what it means behind the scenes. What are you really supporting and what are you investing in? So here, this is from 2023. Actually, you know what? Here, I got it over here. But the briefing is, even after laying off a total of 800 employees, Let me see here. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's just go to the Motley Fool and I'll show you there. All right. So what this is saying from August of 2023. So a couple months ago. Now remember, apparently this company's been out for 12 years now, right? This is saying, will Spotify ever turn a profit? Now, I don't, these shocking articles here, right? Because it's saying that Spotify was profitable and making X amount of dollars, but the question is, will they ever turn a profit? Well, that's a big difference, right? So the key points of this article is saying that Spotify added a record number of users in the second quarter, okay, of this year. The company's operating margin is at its worst level in years. Management needs more cost discipline if it wants to reach its long-term profitability goals. So company's operating margin is at its worst level in years. Now, let's look at this. Here's what it was. Here's the clip. Even after laying off. Well, here we go. So think about it like this. When the currency started rolling in, right? We showed you the stock 2021. It was up high. So when things look like they're growing, what do companies do? They expand. This is why, on a side note on business structure, and this is why I can help companies, because with the MEG principles and process training, as project leadership and process optimization, we could basically make a brand or a business more profitable through its processes, refinement, prevent them from being in a situation like this. Because when a company gets too large and it has a certain, when it grows to the point where it's maximized the market share, like when we showed that graph that showed Spotify had 30, roughly a third of the market. Now there's no more people. Where are you going to get more people from if the market is already filled up? You can't report a profit to stockholders unless you start cutting away at the company and taking the savings and moving that savings over to profitability. All right. And if you can't do that fast enough, you have to start doing stuff like this, like laying off people. And we're going to show you here. Excuse me. So it got to the point where, all right, so the profit, here's where we were. Profitability problem has an easy fix, but will management act? So some of Spotify's Q2 expenses were one-time blips that could be fixed in the future. And there were around $150 million of expenses in the quarter related to layoffs and its real estate optimization plan. However, even if you add back these expenses, Spotify would still have lost $123 million in the quarter. So basically they lost almost $300 million, they're saying, right? So why can't a company with over 500 million users generate a profit? So 500 million users at $10.99. Let's just, put it in perspective here. 500 million times 10.99 is $5.5 billion right there. Just on the subscriptions, right? But anyway, here's the thing. Even after, so I said it's simple. There are too many employees for its gross profitability. Even after laying off a total of 800 employees this spring, Spotify still had around 9,500 full-time employees and generates $3.2 billion in gross profit over the last 12 months. In contrast, Netflix had 12,800 full-time employees, so roughly 3,000 more at the end of 2022, and generated $12.5 billion in gross profit over the last 12 months. So with just 3,000 more employees, Netflix is doing 4 times the gross profit. So it says that's 4 times the gross profit, but only 1.3 times the number of employees. This is why Netflix has an operating margin close to 20%, while Spotify continues to lose money quarter after quarter. So the reason they can't keep it 100 with the artists is because they getting extorted basically by the record labels that you ran from, that you saying most artists find or consider Spotify as a safe haven instead of going through the record labels. So they got to pay the record labels 20%. So 20% of your royalty, your money, is going to the record labels that you aren't even signed to. That was brilliant. Like, now that I think about it, that was fucking brilliant on their part. Like, we don't even got to sign you no more, and we make 20% of everything that you make. Then Spotify got to pay its employees, then etc. Then, and they started just saying, look, we can't pay you. We got to pay all these other people. We got to pay the stockholders. We got to pay the record labels. We got to pay all these employees we got. We can't pay you, but you're the one giving them the product. How do you feel about that? Is Spotify a company you still want to support? Do you understand now why Pasha never really cared about Spotify streams? You look at some of your local artists, they're posting their little revenue. They got 120,000 plays and they made $200 total. Do you celebrate that, or do you start to feel like it's insanity? So a year of streaming 200, let's say 250, right? 250 divided by 8. I mean, you make that in a day if you make $31 an hour. And of course, $31. Oh my God, 30, that's a lot of, it's a big, you balling if you're making $31 an hour. Well, okay. But what my point is $31 an hour at some lucky, position at a job, or something you paid, $200,000 to go to school for and in debt, so that you can make $31 an hour, whatever the case is. You got a business that average out to $31 an hour, whatever, however you got there. $31 an hour, somebody makes that in an 8-hour work day. Or you can go through all the trials and tribulations, fights, battles, advertising, promoting, building your music, and make that in a year, or make that when you get 121,000 streams. What did you gain? Because for me, 121,000 plays doesn't mean that you got 121,000 fans. And that's the part that artists are missing. I think that's the biggest part that artists are missing. If 10 people play your song and only one person like it to want to hear the next song from you, then you really didn't get those 10 plays really only equated to 10%. So now if you got that same 120,000, let's say 150,000 plays, that means after all that you got 1,500 people, right? But as we pointed out, to get that point, you might have spent, in some cases, thousands of dollars, and all you generated was 1,500 people that Spotify then is going to say half of them are going to leave the service because they're going to raise their prices. Then they're not going to necessarily play your music because you're not going to be considered the major artist that's making them profit. Then they're going to cut your revenue stream. So now your $220 is going to be $150, and you spent $4,000 to produce $150 in return. So by following the Spotify model, right, as above, so below, Spotify is a system that's going to be hasn't turned a profit in 20 years. I mean, I'm exaggerating that. Then you got to understand the people that are going to be most attracted to it on average are going to fall into the same vibration. So a lot of the fans see those numbers. I got 150 monthly listeners, but they don't know what the cost is. So the reason I bring that up is then when they see someone that's got 0, they look at them like the 0's a failure. However, I would rather have 0 and not have the $10,000 dumped into it to show you that I got 150 monthly listeners, which really only equates to $300 at the end of the year, which only puts you $9,700 in the hole. I mean, some people got it to throw away like that because they want to be seen. I think when music returns to powerful messages instead of just gimmicks and the addiction to attention, which will be driven by the listeners, when people stop saying, hey, look, man, when people start saying, hey, look, this is all bullshit, I'm paying $10.99 a month for this, and I'm not learning anything or I'm not getting any value from it. The reason why they feel like they're not getting any value from it is because they're not learning nothing from it. They're not gaining nothing from it. They're not gaining nothing from listening to most of these people's music that get all the revenue streams. They don't realize that because they're just sitting there and their brain is programmed to go like this. And they're like, oh shit, yeah, fuck, yeah, that's hard. What's hard about it? Oh, he said, she said. What was hard about it? What was dope about it? No, you just don't realize that you were forced to listen to it 12 times in the last 2 weeks. So you're familiar with it and you think that you like it. But if you gave that same attention to the artists that are dropping the songs naturally and listen to their song 12 times, you probably would get a much greater return on your investment. There's artists out there that's not being played on these platforms because they're delivering you intelligent content, just like YouTube, just like everywhere else. So they're being suppressed because they don't fit the labels model of conditioning your mind so that you will appreciate what the label puts out. So until you can't blame the algorithms because the algorithms is reflecting what you say that you like. And right now, what you're doing as a listener is you're shutting out all of the people that's delivering you value-added content and substance because you're not strong enough to maintain your own thoughts and control your own mind. So now they lose out. The labels are going to take over Spotify completely, and you're going to be trapped with everything that you thought Spotify was going to free you from. Unless you do something different. That's on the artist, that's on the listener side, because they apparently haven't been turning a profit and continues to lose money. So now they have to get it from you, pay you less, to paying the record labels more. And that's what's going to happen. The next time the record label comes to the next meeting and says, okay, look, we want a bigger cut, or we pulling all our music off your stream, like Tidal or something. What are you going to do? And then Spotify is not going to have nothing but the very people that they're turning their backs on right now. And that's how you got to look at the situation. So they're not going to want this video to get VAR. So I need you to like, support, share with every artist that you know. You're not going to probably find this detail of a breakdown anywhere else. You got a lot of people talking about emotionally, shit. But this is the science behind what, when, where, and why, how we got here. All right. And this is why Pasha never cared about Spotify, because Spotify obviously doesn't care about you. Just a front for the record labels. Thank you for tuning. Enjoy.